Bonjour tout le monde! Hi everyone! Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing well, that you had a good weekend, that your beginning of the week is fine. I'm happy to see you for another class today. So the subject of today's video is going to be actually the last part of our group's video. As you know, we talked about the verbs for the past 2 weeks. If you didn't see the video, you should go back on them because, as you know or not, the verbs in French are split into 3 different categories. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the first category of verb, which is the verb finishing with er. This was the topic of 2 weeks ago, so if you didn't see that one, you should go see that one. Last week, we talked about the verb from the second group, which is the verb finishing with IR, but if you saw the last video, you know that it's not all of the verbs finishing with IR, it's just a couple of verbs because we have a specific rule, which is the rule of the double S. If you're not familiar with that one, go check that one too so that you're going to be super comfortable with the verbs from the first group and the second group. But for today's video, we're going to talk about the last groups of verb, which is the verb from the third group, which is like all of the rest. So you have the first group, which is the verb finishing with ER, the second group, which is the verb finishing with IR with the double S rule, and then the third group, the last groups of verb, is all of the rest. So if it's not ER, not IR, all of the verbs are going to be put in the third category. So here you see, for example, that you have the verb to come. To come in French is venir. Venir, IR. But this one is in the third group, not the second one. We're going to see why. Then we also have the verb ici, which is voir, OIR ending. And another example, the verb to take, that we say prendre, DRE ending. So in this group, we're going to have a lot of different verbs. This one is kind of tricky because it's considered sometimes kind of exceptions, irregular verbs, but you're going to see it's not that hard and you're going to be professionals of verbs after that one. Little recap, as you know, maybe now you're familiar with it, we have the personal pronoun. Personal pronoun, always the same thing. I is je, you is tu, he, il, she, elle, we say nous, you is vous, and they, we split they into masculine and feminine. If it's they masculine, we say il, same as the singular with the S. They feminine, we're going to say elle, same as the singular with the S. Okay, as I said, the third group can be split into different categories depending of the ending of the verb. In the same group of verbs, we have a couple of different verbs finishing with different endings, such as IR, OIR, DRE, etc. For all of these verbs, you're supposed to have a specific ending. For example, for the verb venir. Venir, if you check last week's video, you know that for the verb second group, you're supposed to have the double S. For the verb venir, it's an IR ending, but it's not a verb from the second group because when you're going to conjugate that verb, we're not going to use the double S. So for venir, to come, we're going to have a specific ending. For je, it's going to be S. Tu, S. Il, elle, you're going to put a T at the ending. Nous, ONS. Keep in mind, for nous, it's we. We're always going to use the ONS ending. For vous, IZ, and for il, elle, which is they, ENT. Nous, vous, il, elle will always be the same ending. Super easy. You just have to remember like the first pronouns. For the verb OIR, such as voir, which is to see, it's the same. S for tu, N for je, T for il, elle, ONS for nous, IZ for vous, and ENT for il, elle. And then, kind of different, which is the verb prendre, to take. If you have the verb finishing with DRE, the ending is going to be quite different. You're going to have DS for je, DS the same for tu, just a D for il, elle, and the same, ONS for nous, IZ for vous, and ENT for il, elle. Let's talk about the first one. The first one is IR, such as venir. Venir, to come. As I said, the third group is kind of complex in a way that you have a lot of different endings. And you also have sometimes a little exception in the base of the verb. That means you're going to have to add a little vowel, a little letter sometimes that you're not supposed to be putting if it was not irregular. So for example, venir, to come, you're supposed, originally, if you understood the rules, to just keep the base and then change the ending. In this one, venir is irregular. That means the base is going to be a little different. We're going to go from venir, which is to come, to je viens. So in this one, we're not just going to keep the natural base VEN and changing the ending. We're going to have to add an I between the V and the E. Je viens. So now your new base of the verb is going to be VIEN. And then you know that finishing with IR, the natural ending was going to be S. So you're just going to put your S. Je viens. Je viens, I come. S is not an R. Always mute. Never pronounce it. Je viens, I'm putting my S. Tu viens, S. Il, elle vient, putting the T. This one, careful. Every time, particularly always, when you have a verb, third group, the base is going to be different from the first pronoun. When it comes to nous and vous, they're practically always going to be regular. That means you're going to keep your natural base, which is VEN from venir, and you're just going to add the natural ending of your pronoun, which here for nous it's ONS. So you're keeping your base VEN and you're just adding your natural ending for nous, which is ONS. So we come, nous venons. This one go back to the natural rule, regular rule. For vous, same thing. You're keeping your base VEN and you're putting your natural ending EZ. Because with vous, always going to put EZ ending. So you come, vous venez. Keep in mind, EZ always A sound. Vous venez. And then they come. Because this one is not regular, we have to go back to the base VIEN. I am putting my ENT ending and I double my N in this one. And I'm going to be pronouncing this one, ils, elles viennent. I don't pronounce the ENT, but I'm going to pronounce my double N. So if I want to say the verb to come, venir, je viens, tu viens, il, elle vient, nous venons, vous venez, ils, elles viennent. This is the natural way that we're supposed to be saying that thing. But, of course, as I said, this is the third group. That means this is irregular. So it's not because you have a verb finishing with IR that it's always going to be the same ending. So you have a little exception, which is the verb to offer. We're going to say offrir. Offrir, IR ending. But careful with this one. It's not because it's IR that you're going to put an S at je. In this one, it's kind of irregular because if you look at the ending and if you watch the previous videos, you're maybe going to be able to distinguish what ending is that one is the same ending from the verb first group. It's an exception. So if you want to say I offer, j'offre. And I'm not putting an S, I'm putting the I. Tu offres, IS, il, elle offre, I. Nous offrons. Don't forget to link the S from nous with the O from offrons. Always try to make the little link and never pronounce the final S. Nous offrons, we offer. Vous offrez, you offer. And then they offer. Ils offrent, elles offrent. Always mute. The only thing that you're going to be pronouncing is the ONS and the EZ. That's all. So here, kind of tricky. Careful. It's not because your verb finishing with IR that it's always going to be an S. Most of the time, it's going to be the S, but sometimes, such as the verb to offer, offrir, you're going to put it. Then, another example. We have the verb voir. Voir, to see. Every time you're going to have OI, wa sound. And you're always going to pronounce the R at the end of a word. So, voir. You pronounce everything. Voir, regular. Why? Because you're just going to switch the R with the natural ending that we saw at the beginning of the video, and you're keeping your base. So if you want to say I see, je vois. I'm keeping my base, VOI, and I'm replacing my R with the S. Je vois, tu vois, il, elle voit, regular. Careful in this one. If you want to say we see, you're going to say nous voyons. And in this one, I'm going to switch and replace my I with a Y. Nous voyons. Same for vous. Vous voyez. The sound of the Y is a little bit tricky. It's like a Y. So you're going to be saying nous voyons, vous voyez. And then for they, we go back to the natural I, il, elle, voit, keeping my natural base, VOI, and putting my ENT ending, which is a natural ending. Je vois, tu vois, il, elle voit, nous voyons, vous voyez, il, elle voit. Never pronounce the ENT. But it's not because the verb finishing with OIR that it's always going to be the same ending. Of course, otherwise it's not funny and it's not French. You have another example, which here is a little exception, such as the verb to can. You're going to say pouvoir. Pouvoir is irregular. Why that? If you look at the first one, if you want to say I can, completely different verb. It's not the same base at all. So if you want to say I can, switching the verb like 100%, it's going to be je peux. For pouvoir, je peux. This is the new base that we need to have for this one, P-E-U. And in this one, we're not going to put an S, we're going to put an X. Je peux, I can. Tu peux, same writing for tu. X is always mute. Il, elle peut, he can, she can. And here we're switching the X with the T. And then nous, vous, regular. So we go back to the natural base, which is P-O-U-V. And you're just going to add the natural ending with nous, which is ONS. Nous pouvons. With vous is EZ. Vous pouvez. And then for they, we go back to the weird base, which is P-E-U. And then you're going to put the natural ending ENT. So you're going to be pronouncing this one. Ils peuvent. Elles peuvent. They can. So careful. If you want to say the verb to can, pouvoir, je peux, tu peux, il, elle peut, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, ils, elles peuvent. And you stop at the V. Never pronounce the ENT. Then, another example, we have the verb finishing with DRE, such as to take, that we say prendre. Same thing here. You pronounce everything, prendre, but don't pronounce the final E. There's no accent in this one. Every time you see a word with a final E, with no accent, always mute. So you're going to say prendre, and you stop at the R sound. This one, we saw the ending at the beginning. If it's a verb finishing with DRE, the ending is DS for je. So I take, je prends. Regular, why? Because we keep the base, PREN, and then I'm just replacing my DRE with the DS ending. Je prends, tu prends, il, elle prend. For il, elle is just a D, always mute. But here we go again. For nous and for vous, regular. So you're just keeping your natural base from the verb prendre and you're putting the natural ending. Nous prenons. Vous prenez. And then, careful with this one, it's kind of regular in the way that you keep your base and you're adding your ENT. But every time you have E and ENT, you have to double your N. So you'll be saying, ils prennent, elles prennent. Here we go one more time. If you want to say to take, je prends, tu prends, il, elle prend, nous prenons, vous prenez, ils, elles prennent. But of course, it's not always the same thing. If you want to say the verb to wait, we say attendre. So we have prendre, to take, attendre, to wait. You see here is the same ending, DRE. So you're supposed to be saying, okay, it's the same as prendre. No. Why not? It's kind of similar, but we have a little change. If you want to say I wait, same thing as usual. You're just going to keep your base and replacing the DRE with the DS. So I wait, j'attends. Keep in mind, every time you have a verb that starts with a vowel, you're capable of removing your E from je and putting the apostrophe because we always want to link our phrases and our words. And if you have two vowels next to each other, you're capable of removing the E from je. So je prends, because prends starts with a consonant, I keep je prends. Attendre, attends start with a vowel, A. I'm removing my E from je to say j'attends. J'attends, tu attends, il, elle attend with a D. This one, why is it a little bit weird? Because if you want to say we wait, and this one, you're going to keep your D. So if you want to say we take, prenons, no D in this one. We wait, nous attendons. So in this one, attendre with we, nous, the base is going to be A-T-T-N-D. And then I'm putting my ending ONS. Nous attendons, vous attendez, il, elle, same thing, always mute. And of course, we have a little exception, which is the verb to go, aller, ER ending, but careful, this one is not the first group Because you see here, the base is completely different. So if you want to say to go, je vais, tu vas, il, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, I think, il, elle. This one, even though it's finishing with the ending er, it's considered third group because the base is weird. Hey, I hope this helped you a little bit. If you want to practice those verbs, can be sometimes a little bit tricky. You have this exercise to do. So you have the verb full form and you have to try to put the right ending for the right pronoun. If you have any questions, same as usual, please don't hesitate to text on our social or in the comment section. I hope this helped you, and I just cannot wait to see you for another class next week. And I wish you a good end of your week, and I cannot wait. Bye.